Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. It's June. I'm excited that we're here. I realized when I was doing some editing last week that Colleen's episode was number 150. Yeah, we have 150 episodes. Thank you all so much for rocking with us. I am so grateful, and we wouldn't be here without you. And again, this is a podcast where we want to share stories from all vantage points, from those who are in the front office all the way to the first timer and learning their story. With that said, sometimes we have to try again. And that's what's happening now. A couple of hours ago, I did this recording and it did not save. This isn't the first time that's happened to me. This is the second time. But I just know that it's going to be better this time around. So I am excited to welcome to this audience someone who's a leader in the sport. I met them doing a DEI conference with USA Triathlon in 2020. And at that moment, I knew I wanted to get to know them. However, I didn't have the podcast then to be like, hey, come on the podcast. But now I do. And now I get to have this opportunity. They are a part of one of the largest triathlon club in the Washington, D.C. area. And what I appreciate is that they lead not only in the sport, but also making sure that inclusivity is at the forefront of everything that they do. And I couldn't be more grateful than to have Mr. Bryan Frank with me on today's podcast. Bryan, welcome to Try Beginner's Luck for the second time in a day.
For the second time. All good.
How are you?
I am doing well. It's almost the end of the day, so work is done for the day.
It is. And you know what's interesting is that I think doing this again, it just really shows the resilience of us as endurance athletes. Like, you may not get it on the first time, but you're coming back, you do it again.
Yeah.
You may have had that bad race one time. You get back on the bandwagon, you do it again. And I think that is something that I'm learning to appreciate about this sport, is that just because something doesn't turn out the way you want it to initially doesn't mean that's the final story. And you get to rewrite a better story.
There you go.
So
We're going to rewrite a better one now.
We get to write a better one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I probably don't have to spend as much time harping on some of the things that I was harping on. So
that's quite all right. We can obsess over bikes anytime.
I love it. Thank you. So speaking of, I'm going to address the elephant in the room for those of us who are watching. You have an impressive bike collection behind you. I want to know, how many bikes do you have? And because the whole thing in the sport is you have to have N+1 bikes, but I feel like that's at least 3 wheels I can see. So tell us about your bike collection and what you use them for.
There are 4 bikes behind me. I have currently 5 bikes with a 6th being built for me right now. But as my mom always carps at me, why do you need that many bikes? I'm like, well, they all do something different. They have a different point, each one of them.
Okay.
So there's a racing bike, the time trial. I have a mountain bike. I have a gravel bike. And then this one that's right behind me, the closest one is kind of an urban commuter bike, though I don't really commute to work, but it's kind of an urban bike has lights built into it and is more just for tooling around. And then I have a road bike, and while it's my oldest bike, that's the one that's being replaced because, as you said, N+1. Um, and just it's time for a new bike. I haven't bought one in a while, and it's just itching to get a new bike. So they all do something different. So that's why I have different bikes or that many bikes.
No, I appreciate that. Like once you start buying multiple bikes, you really have a hard time stopping. I have another friend who I saw her this past weekend at the Arms Forces Cycling Classic, and I was like, "That's a new bike." She's like, "Oh yeah, I got a new bike," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how do you keep getting all these new bikes?" But I want to point out the bikes because I know a lot of times people this could be a big barrier to entry, right?
Mhm.
Like people don't can't afford bikes for various reasons, or they feel like their bike that they have is not good enough. And when you first started, I know that you had a mountain bike. And
Yes.
so tell us about how you've used, you used your mountain bike and then proceeded to kind of upgrade from there.
So yeah, it was. I mean, I guess to my story, at least as far as how I got into the sport, was like in 2008. Like I had finished grad school maybe like 2 years earlier or something like that, and I was just kind of lazing around, not really doing a whole lot. And I had a mountain bike that I kind of like maybe once a month go tool around in on the trails. And as I am not a good mountain biker at all, I'm horrible at it. Like if there's a log that's more than like 2 inches high, I'm going to take my bike off, get off my bike and walk it over that log. But I had it, it was there. I was, like I mentioned, I was kind of just tooling around. I was going to the gym whenever I wanted to and not really focused anything. But I had a really good friend at the time, and she was doing running races. She was running marathons all the time. And she saw people with triathlon t-shirts and she was like, I want to do one of those. And so she started researching around triathlon and new triathletes. And she came across the DC Triathlon Club's new triathlete program. And we have the program has an informational session. So if you don't know if you want to sign up for it yet, if you just want to go and learn before you pay any money, you can go and sit and ask questions and hear about it. And she goes, I want to go to that and I don't want to go alone. So you're going with me. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go with you. I sat in that room, as so many people have, which always baffles me. Is every year we get at least 100 new people to triathlon in this program.
Wow.
Um, I was one of those at one point, 17 years ago, and it seemed interesting. And I thought, all right, well, I can. I was a swimmer by background. I swam in high school and club before that. But I didn't really bike much and I didn't run at all. I was never into running. I haven't run a 5K, had never run a half marathon, had never done anything. And I was like, it seemed interesting. So like, whatever, let's do this. And signed up and 6 months later, or however long the program was, 24 weeks later, we did our first one in New Jersey State Triathlon up in Princeton, New Jersey. And, I did it on my mountain bike because I didn't know if I was going to enjoy the sport. I wasn't sure I was going to like take to it. Would this be for me? I'd been diagnosed with patellar tendonitis way, way back, and I thought running would like be painful and cause more issues with my knees.
Mhm.
But turned out fine. And I took third in my division, the novice division, not anywhere, big, just the first timers division. Thought I was good at it, really enjoyed it. And then, my bank account has suffered since because of all the bikes I bought. So, but you didn't have to. Like I could do it. I did it on my first, I did it on the mountain bike. Um, as we mentioned, like I had changed out the knobby tires for a little bit slicker tires, because that's better for road riding. Knobby tires are a little more comfortable when you're on a trail because they have the grip, but you don't need that on road surfaces. I put some aero bars on the clip-on aero bars on the crossbar and just went for it.
So I'm curious.
Mhm.
I have a lot to want to unpack there.
Yeah.
You mentioned the knobby tires and changing them to put on a smaller, slicker tire,
Yeah.
which in theory makes a lot of sense. But as a beginner, like, how did you know to do that?
It was actually I like and I don't know, like I don't remember, so long ago I don't remember exactly what the spark was for the idea, but like in the clinics that the NTP program had it, I'd seen the road bikes, I'd seen the slicker tires. Like I knew that like riding on a just when I was doing my training, like I knew riding on road surfaces on those knobby tires was a little bumpy and rough. And I was like, all right, maybe I can do this. And like I wasn't sure if the bike could do it. And like I just tried it and it worked. So it was just kind of a trial and error, just kind of like observing what other people were doing
Yeah.
and adapting it.
So what's interesting and the reason why I was curious is because I just realized a couple of years ago that if you want to make adjustments to your bike and your tires, to give them instead of buying a new bike, you can change out components to
Mhm.
kind of upgrade it to the spec to be a little bit faster and more user friendly and comfortable. And
Yeah.
so I had tires that were maybe 22 and was encouraged to go to 28. But that's a big jump, and not every frame can withhold that depending if you have an older frame. And so I
Yeah.
ended up not only being able to go to like 25s. However, I realized the wider your tire is, the more comfortable it is depending on the type of frame. So it's something interesting between like that 22 for a road bike, 28s are like the best from what they say, are like a good, gives you a good, comfortable, more endurance tire for if you're going longer distances and riding in
Yeah.
unique terrain. But I really think that that's such a good call out. And so if you do have a mountain bike and you want to use what you have, or you have a hybrid bike, instead of thinking that your bike is useless, you can adjust the tires to make them more useful for you for the time you need it to be useful for
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, like I put on clip-on aero bars is like it's not going to give me a huge aerodynamic advantage. A mountain bike is not made for aerodynamics.
Right.
But like a mountain bike has that crossbar. Like it's a handlebar that is a crossbar, just sticks straight out. You have one hand grip like positioned for that. If you're talking about a road bike where you got probably at least 10 different hand positions that you can put your hands on, like in the drops or on the bullhorns or like different ones. So putting on clip-on aero bars gave me a different arm position and hand position when you're out there riding for 15 miles or 25 miles depending on the distance that you're doing for like sprinter ollie if you're first. I mean, if you want to go half for your first race, sure, go for it, go big. But it gives you different place to be, so when you're out there for an hour or however long, hour and a half, 2 hours to do an Olympic bike course, however long it takes you, it gives you something, a different comfort position for your hands. So it kind of takes the pressure off of your shoulders and your neck and in your arms, like in your back. So it gives you some comfort. So to like let you be better for the run, like to be a little more comfortable and you're not stressed for the run. You're like, oh, I just did all this to my back. So,
Yeah. And as you grow in the sport, I think that's one of the things that you learn is you can always do little tweaks and minor tweaks to make everything better for the run, because that's the last, it's the last distance. I mean, in the last, it's the
discipline.
last, what do you say?
Discipline.
Yes, thank you. Because clearly I'm like drawing it's the end of, the last day and we've already like, but it's
Yeah.
the last discipline, and you want to make sure you set yourself up the best for that. And so many times I hear, and I've done it myself, where you give it your all on the swim and the bike, and then you have nothing to give on the run. And that's really kind of like the reverse. You want to like slowly progress and get, put more in it as you go so that you can kind of leave it all on the course on the run.
Yeah.
So with that said, let's transition to your first New Jersey State Triathlon. I've heard so much about this triathlon, and I'm really excited because I'm doing it with some friends in this upcoming July as my birthday try. So for those of you who are listening and you want to come hang out, they still have registrations left and you can party with me on my birthday. So July 20th is the race. My birthday is the 19th. Yes, gifts are accepted. Mashonda Shines for Venmo, all that good stuff. Just putting it out there. No, in all seriousness, tell me about your first race, because for you all to go all the way to New Jersey for your first race, it had to be a race worth going for.
I will say I had no clue. I was new to the sport, so I did not know anything about this race. But it was the pick. It was picked by the leaders of the new triathlete program as the goal race for the program, and the club was had a big contingent. I think we were probably 100 people strong at the race back then, like if not more. So it was really a fun event, and like we did. I think the one nice thing kind of about slightly distant races, not ones like you can drive to in like 30 minutes or an hour, like it was enough that like you're not going to drive there the morning of, so you should stay there. But that meant like everybody was staying there. And so we did like a massive group dinner. We rented out like I think there's like a clubhouse right there at the park. And so we rented out and they catered a meal in there. And so we all like 100 of us hung out and just had dinner together and celebrated and did a post party thing type thing. So it was kind of nice. That was like we were all far enough away that you couldn't just, yeah, race is done, we're going home, or I just got here, race is starting type thing. There was a lot of socialization going around the race because it was far enough that you could do that, which I think makes it a much more fun event when everybody's like sticking around and socializing. So. But so that's how we picked it, or that's how the race was picked. Um, it was training for it. Like I didn't put the slick tires on until probably the week before the race, the whole training up to it. I was riding on the knobby tires. As I mentioned, I'm a swimmer by background, so the swimming was never a major issue for me. I hadn't done a lot of open water swimming, but it didn't scare me, which I know it does for a lot of people because it kind of, it's murky, it's different, it's who knows what's under the surface of the water. But it never really bothered me, so that didn't really affect my training. Running wise, as I mentioned, I'd had patellar tendonitis or been diagnosed with it. And so I did a lot of my training on the treadmill and the elliptical, um, just because I was worried about how it would affect my run and or how I would react to the run. But turns out it never, even my 15 or 17 years now of racing, it's not ever really flared up in any issue or not. And I've turned out to be a really good runner. So not an excellent runner, but I think I'm a pretty good runner. So um,
No, I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of people, if they feel like they have a predetermined condition, especially in the running, they're like, I can't run. But you took a different method of doing the elliptical, which I've heard that the elliptical has really great benefits. Um,
takes the impact out of it.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so now you've been able to run and you've gone on to do a lot of different races. Um, so I think you just mentioned that did you tell us how your race went in that?
I mentioned, yeah, third in the novice
Third, that's what I
division.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay, third.
turned out to be okay at this. So
Okay, okay. And so
even
uh,
on a hybrid bike, so even on a mountain bike. So
even on a mountain bike, I love
yeah.
that because I feel like I was announcing at General Smallwood, and if I'm not mistaken, you placed in that one too, right?
Third overall. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can tell that he third overall. So
Yeah.
you are accustomed to podiuming, like that's a thing of yours because
Yes. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
okay. So you started out, you were a novice, you tried beginner's luck, and you quote unquote won. Like
Yeah.
even if you finished, you still won, right? But you
Yeah.
actually podiumed, and that seems to be you're better than I think you probably give yourself credit for,
I think that's a fair statement.
right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about. I want to talk about you've held several different positions, and with the DC Tri Club, they have like some subgroups within groups of groups. Like they're the largest group, but then they have like mini groups, like mini networks.
Yeah.
And so one of those mini groups is the elite.
Yes. Hmm.
And that's something that you have been a part of for a couple of years, probably a little over 10 years. So, what is that like, and how is that different than being a part of the regular club?
So the elite team started probably around the time I joined the DC Tri Club. So maybe about 2008 or 9, 2010, somewhere in that area. And the whole point of forming the team, or the club's point, is we had been losing a lot of fast athletes to other teams that were sponsored. Like if you could get free gear, free entry, free whatever, or just big discounts, we were losing fast athletes to that. And so the club looked at it as, well, how do we're losing all this wealth of knowledge in racing, in training, in best practices. And so how do we retain that? And the club being large enough and strong enough, both financially and with the breadth of like experience within the club and drive of the members, found it was able to create its own sponsored elite team. Um, I know some people bristle at the idea of like amateur elite team because that's, I think that we call it the DC Tri Club Amateur Elite Racing Team. Some people bristle at that nomenclature, and it's really kind of a, I guess it's no longer really completely relevant, but it was a class or a tier of a category. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. Category of racing back in the day. Like there were the pro athletes, and then right below it were elite amateurs, and there were a lot of races that formed. Like you had this front pack, this elite amateur race where you could compete against the other fast people. And we've gone away more to the time trial starts. We've gone more into kind of individual start or small wave starts. But I know like Greg and the Kinetic Multisport has kind of brought back that elite amateur. It might be a lot smaller than it used to be, but it's that front little pack of everybody's going to go at the exact same time. So you know where you stand within the race against the people you're competing with. But so when we formed this team in all of our social media handles, elite amateur was kind of a category that still existed. So it's kind of downstream of that. Now, while it's no longer really a relevant term that triathlon or USA Triathlon uses, we still kind of adhere to it just because we don't want to change our social media. But like I've joined the team in about 2012, I think, and then around 2015 or 16, I don't remember exactly, the couple that it was a husband-wife team were leading the program or the team, and they were having a kid, and they decided they no longer wanted to lead the team or didn't have the bandwidth to do it anymore. And so they wanted to turn it back over to the club. And me being on the team, they're like, we want you to run it because we think you're gonna, keep it up and or keep the team going. And it's something I've been passionate about for the last 10 years or 9, 10 years of leading it, building it, and shaping it into kind of the team that I really want to see and be proud of. And it's just, it's an application-based team. Um, we expect our team members to be near the top of the overall podium or on their age group podiums regularly. Uh, we are both a balance between male and female. We have eight males, eight females. I sit outside that as the team manager, so I don't count among those. We are balanced between short and long distance, so I don't think of triathlon as the end game is Ironman. I don't think the end game should be you on a triathlete unless you've done Ironman World Championships. I think that's a bad mentality to set. I encourage short course racing. Like if you want to focus on sprint and Olympic distance racing, that is great and that's phenomenal. And we are spread the gamut as far as age groups or age on the team. We have probably over half the team is 50 and above. We have three women who are in their 60s who are just dominating in their fields. Um, we have like the one of them is third in the world in her age group. She won the bronze medal at the world like triathlon age group national or age group world championships a couple years ago. She was third in the world in her age group. Like we don't, you don't have to just be young and fast. Like you can be older and fast. So like it's kind of crazy that the people in this team are so great. Even when they're at their older and they're still really outperforming everybody. It's amazing. But in addition to that, like it's so we look at placement and how you're doing. Those are some more objectives, like you look at USAT scoring type things, like how you're doing in your age group relative. Uh, but I think another half of that is, half is probably the objective of scoring and placement. But the other one is more subjective. I want to build a team that gives back to the sport. I want them to be involved in the sport, growing it, making sure it's welcoming to anybody um, who is interested in joining the sport. And they have volunteer requirements. The team members are required to give back to the sport. Um, and like things like the club's new triathlete program, they put on clinic days every year for the new triathletes, like swim techniques, bike buying, or like bike handling, running techniques. The team members of our elite team members are the ones in giving that instruction. They're there to impart their knowledge and their skills and their know-how of this sport. So that's kind of really what I want it to be. I want the very back of the pack, the very last person in the race to be able to come up to one of the team member who might have won the race or been on the overall podium and saying, "Hey, can you tell me how did this go? How would I do this? How could I do better? How could to be able to just say like they're part of my team, I can go up and talk to them. I don't feel scared, even though I was the very last person in the race. I don't feel scared to go up to one of these elite team members and just say hi and have a conversation, grab a beer with them. You know, that's the kind of the team that I want to build and be proud of.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that the elite team was that you whoever started it, they kept it going and you took the reins because I think it's so much wisdom to be learned. And if people are like me, they're sponges and they just want to be able to ask questions and they may not be able to afford a coach, but they can like learn so much by watching how those who perform at a high level try and
Yeah.
then replicate that in their own way based off of what they have. And I think that is so important. And, you know, there's a couple of reasons why this podcast was started, but one of them was because I kept feeling like I was a beginner and not getting the information I needed, but was learning it little by little. So I kept
Mhm.
saying, like, I feel like I'm still a beginner. And it had been like 5 years. And then it was like, I feel like I'm still a beginner. And yes, you should approach a sport like that so it doesn't get dull. But I really was approaching it because I just didn't have the knowledge or the confidence to ask the questions to get my questions answered.
Yeah.
Because it can be
And I,
intimidating. This sport
yeah,
is,
and that's what I hope the team can do is break that barrier, that intimidation. Like you don't, I'm hoping that people who are within the club and like new triathletes that they get to know the team members and don't feel intimidated by asking questions or for asking questions. I'm hoping to break that barrier in some way.
yeah. And thank you for doing it because I think that is so, so, so important. But I also love this volunteerism. I have been talking a lot about volunteerism this year, and it's been a natural thread because many of us triathletes don't go back and volunteer. And I realized when I volunteered, this was my first long course volunteer.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, the volunteers work hard,
Oh yeah, they do.
work hard, hard. And I just was like, man, more people should give back at least at every distance that you participate in so that you could feel what it's like on the other side. And I
Yeah,
love that for you all, you guys give back in various forms. And a lot of that is showing some of the newbies love and giving them what they need.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's great to like I've volunteered at races or like especially at an Ironman, like those volunteers can be out there 8, 9 hours and like yeah, they're not racing, but they're running around, they're doing everything. It's exhausting to volunteer at a race, and it's a good experience for especially elite team people who are typically known for just taking from this sport to give back to the sport.
Hashtag facts, hashtag you ain't lying, hashtag dead on the money. Well, with that said, um, I couldn't agree with you more. So take time out, volunteer when you can. And sometimes there are race organizers who have programs where if you volunteer, you can race at a reduced cost or free. So sometimes volunteering pays, literally
Yep,
and figuratively.
there you go.
But there's another group, and this is how I met you. I think I was doing an interview or interviewing you on a panel for USA Triathlon when I found out about TriOUT. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool concept. What's TriOUT? And at the moment, like I didn't know what TriOUT was. And then I realized I was like, that's smart. Try out.
Al. Yeah.
Hey, so tell us a little bit about TriOUT and yeah, tell us a little bit about TriOUT.
So tryout was kind of a brainchild of myself and a few other guys, actually. Maybe, I don't know exactly when it started, maybe 2012, 2011, somewhere around there. So, but the idea was to build a community for LGBTQ identifying people within the sport in a multi-sport. Like it doesn't, you don't have to do triathlon. You can, doesn't have to be triathlon, but we wanted to build a sport, a community that was kind of multi-sport focused, that would be welcoming, inclusive, and just kind of open to anybody who identified as LGBTQ as well as their allies. Like we're not you don't have to be LGBTQ to join us for anything. You can be an ally, and that's what we like. Um, we had kind of done kind of looked around at the landscape back in the day, and there were a few LGBT specific groups out there, but they had never they may have lasted like a year or two, either through like drama, internal fighting drama, or just, it happens. People turn do their time, serve their time, and then, move on to different interests. And they kind of like if a leadership peters out, no one's there to step up, then it kind of the group fades. And so we had considered making our own group separate from the DC Tri Club. But after kind of doing our research and thinking about it, it made a lot more sense to work with the DC Tri Club. Both as far as administrative side, we wouldn't have to deal with bylaws. We couldn't have to deal with like doing dues and, having a board of directors and all that. We could focus on what we really wanted to do and build the community that we wanted to build. And so we talked to the club's board of directors. They were willing to like, hey, we'll set aside basically a line item in our finances. Like if you do any fundraising, if you work the beer garden at DC Pride and you bring in some money, we're just going to we'll hold it for you. It's a line item. We'll tell you how much you have. And if you want to spend it on whatever you want to spend it on, team camps, end of the year events, then that's yours to spend. And it worked out really well. The board of directors was very highly approved the idea and supportive of the idea, and so it took off. And we've built it strong. I think a fairly strong community that's been through like there was a time when I was president of the club that I kind of stepped back and let two other people take over running kind of the tryout group, and then they've kind of moved on from DC Tri and or from triathlon, and I kind of stepped back into the role as I stepped down from the club's board. And there's additional people are now stepping up as I'm trying to like back off on a lot of my triathlon um, focused areas just because of times for kind of my time is kind of passing, I think, as far as my leadership roles on different things. But it's so we wanted to build a community that, back to the point, of just kind of creating something that's warm and welcoming where we can train together, race together, build a strong support group that's inclusive and just, it's, I don't want to get into the political landscape that's happening, but like we wanted to be there to protect people and make sure that they had something where they just felt welcome and didn't feel the need to be separate and excluded from something because of who they were or are.
No, absolutely. And I think that is important. I think one of the things we all want, like basic levels of humanity, is to be accepted. And not just accepted in one area, but accepted in all spaces. And so I really appreciate the fact that you have a safe space for people to be able to come, feel comfortable, and try. And I mean, there's a lot of things that we could talk about in terms of how, the
Yeah.
sport can be unwelcoming for many different um, affinity groups.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate that you all make a conscious effort to make sure that there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
What are some of the events that you have to build community, continuity? Like, talk about some of the things that you all are doing.
So I think the most recurring thing that we do is we do a social hour like every second Thursday of the month. So not this Thursday, but next Thursday, we host a social hour. We tend to go to bars and pubs because, it's a good alcohol is always a good lubricant for conversation. But, I know a lot of people don't drink in this day and age, and that is totally fine. So we're just kind of hosted an event social hour. We're gonna like not going to call it happy hour anymore. We're like, let's call it a social hour, and we just come socialize with us. It's a good place to meet people, hang out, talk about triathlon. As you know, any triathlete loves to talk about triathlon. They can go ad nauseum forever, days and days. Um, but so we are always there to chat, and you can plan second Thursday. We move around. We want to support the different local LGBTQ identifying bars in the area. And so we tend to rotate around, and I don't know where next week's is yet. I don't think that's been settled, but you'll find it on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. We also do we put together a club race calendar, a team or a tryout race calendar. Like we put together, like identify some races that we want to do as a group. We just did the Pride 5K yesterday. I think there were probably 20-ish people from TriOUT there who raced. But we do different things. I know we recently, like you mentioned, I was at Smallwood and we kind of made that a tryout specific race. And we're like, there's not a lot of where the Smallwood Park is. There's not a lot around it to like go out to a restaurant or everything. So we said, let's do a post race like picnic type thing and like bring some snacks, bring a cooler of adult beverages or non-adult beverages, and just let's hang out and just chat afterward. And like, so you don't have to rush home. You don't have to get back into the car immediately you leave. And we do, that's something that we wanted to do. And we've created a series of races where like, let's figure something out. If it's a race that's away for the weekend that's kind of far away or like a couple hours that you're not going to drive to morning of, let's see if we can do a group house type thing. um, and then we also do a teen camp where we go out to the Lost River, West Virginia area, which oddly enough is a gay mecca, kind of an LGBTQ mecca that's kind of out in the middle of West Virginia. It's about 2 hours directly west of DC. We go out for a weekend of like biking and running. There's a great lake to swim in, and then we go down to the local farmers market. They have a Saturday cornhole tournament that you can play in, or you can just do wine tastings at the farmers market. Or there's a general store that serves a great pulled pork bar sandwich, or they have a yoga studio. Like it's a neat little area, and we just go out there and train for the weekend and socialize and hang out. And while tryout is open to everybody, like you don't need to be a member of DC Tri Club to become part of our group and to come hang out with us. The camp is the one thing that we do ask that you have to be a member of DC Tri Club, and that is mostly just an insurance thing to make sure that we're covered as far as an event goes. Other than that, just come and hang out with us. We try to do an end of the year event. We have a big group that goes on our Saturday club rides that we go every Saturday from Georgetown as a bike ride. There's a lot more events I would like to do. I know running tends to be kind of hard to do as a group because everybody's different speed, different distances, going different things. The one thing I've always tried to do is tell people, I was like, all right, we're going to do a Sunday run from some location. And the goal is that you finish your run at 10 a.m. No matter what you want to do, like if you need to start at 8 or you need to start at 9, but you need to finish at 10, and then we're all going to go to brunch nearby.
That's
So,
smart because the
yeah,
pace thing can get tricky,
yeah,
but the end time is always solid. Like, that's
yeah,
not going to change. I love
right.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm gonna have to implement that. That's really, really, really good.
So we kind of,
Um,
we have a robust list of activities. I would always love to add more, but it's a lot for one person to kind of recruiting other people to help plan events. So that's kind of like where we are at. But come join us on a Saturday or a Thursday happy hour or the second Thursday happy hour and just find out about us if they want. And we're welcome to open to everybody. You don't have to be, like I meant, LGBTQ plus and allies. Like we want everybody to come join us and be welcoming. So
Awesome. I think also when you say, you want to do more, it can be hard when you're planning things. And it's not by intention or design. I think it's by sometimes people don't know that they can help plan, but they
right.
get so it's so used to things already being laid out for them in the sport that it's really hard to get people to say step up and say, hey, you do have autonomy, you can plan
Yeah.
something, you don't need me.
Yeah.
But I can see how that can be a challenge.
It's
Well,
also like I know I like my me I guess can sometimes feel like a little intimidating, like because they're like, oh, you're the Brian, as you mentioned at the beginning, at the
exactly, you
top
are
of
the
your like,
Brian.
exactly. So like I know people are like, well, I don't want to step on your toes, and I'm like, I am fine if you want to step up and plan something. You are not stepping on my toes, whether it's the club, whether it's tryout, whether it's the elite team. Like, go for it. You're not going to step on my toes. I love to see people step up and plan things.
Okay, so we've also talked about this a lot on the podcast, that there, and I love this concept because you guys are like 3 in 1. Like the sport triathlon. I just cracked myself up with that one. That was a good, that was good, Mashonda. That was so good. That was really good. Like, I'm such a cornball like that. I love it. Okay, okay, okay. Focus. So we've talked about a club, and district triathlon is a club that possesses a team,
Mhm.
because the team is, you have to
Within the
audition
club.
or put an
Yep.
application,
Yep.
but you also have the affinity group
Mhm.
that's within the team that is welcoming to anyone, not necessarily having to be a member of the club.
Right.
And so we talk about the different types of ways that you can try, whether you want to be on a team, a club, um, an apparel team. Like, there's just so many ways that this sport you can enter in, and DC triathlon encompasses it all. Now I'm gonna pause there. That was the comment I was making, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So Mashonda, be sure to edit that part. That's at 42:18. Okay. So yes. So with that, um, I think people need to know that it's okay, that they can try and have the space. And I love that through the fabric of everything I've heard today, one of the things that are linear and it runs through the fabric is inclusivity. Tell me why. Because sometimes, like, we might have had, like, I know why I do this podcast, right? Because of, my lived or shared experiences. And so I would like for you to share with me, why does that inclusivity fiber run so paramount for you?
I think I know, like I don't want to like mention him like, so Cody Beals is always known as like the like, oh, he's the only openly gay pro triathlete, and he doesn't like being identified as that, and he's like, I'm a triathlete who just happens to be gay, and I totally support that, and that's his mission and his drive. But it's we need like, it's so awkward when like I remember like Chattanooga like last year, I think it was last year, he was racing, and like the announcers, as he's finishing second, I think right behind Sam Long, he's like, and here comes Cody Beals, who's the only openly gay triathlete. And I'm like, he's a triathlete, he's an amazing pro triathlete, let's not label him. But also I do remember like when he finished Tremblant, like when he won Ironman Mont Tremblant, like maybe 5, 6 years ago. I remember the actual year or whatever. Like he ended up, I mean, he had just destroyed the field and was so excited that he ended up kissing his boyfriend, like on camera, and he ended up having to apologize for that. I don't think anybody made him apologize, but he just like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to apologize. Like, this needs to be a community where like it's okay if he does that. Like that should be accepted. And I think that's kind of like where I want tryout to go is like we need to build this community of in multi-sport, in triathlon, where it doesn't matter like when somebody like hey Cody kisses his boyfriend, people don't say, well, take that to the room or take that into your bedroom. We don't want to see that, but it's okay for a man and a woman or a man to propose to a woman on the finish line. Like, what if Cody wanted to propose to his boyfriend on the finish line? Like, is that not okay? But it's okay for a man to do that for to a woman. Like, that's like we're still fighting that because that mentality is still there in the sport. And I want it to be where people are like where people always say, well, it shouldn't matter. Like, right, it shouldn't matter. But to some people it does. We want to have this identity where you don't have to call that out. Like it doesn't have to be mentioned. It just is. And we're not there yet. So I think that's kind of why it's important for us to continue building the tryout mission of making this an inclusive um, sport. I know, like, there was a comment made on one of the posts that DC Tri Club shared about like one of the posts at the bottom had a hashtag gay triathlete, and it was just a reshare of something from Tryout onto the main DC Tri Club page. And somebody commented, "Why do you got to make it about that?" And I'm like, because that's what this person is proud of. Like they happen to be gay, and they're really, you know, they're overcoming barriers and they're making, challenging themselves to be better. And we shouldn't have to have deal with those comments, but we still do. Um, so there's a lot to unpack there, I know.
No, it
Um,
is a lot to unpack. And I have nothing to say beyond like love covers it all, right? I think if
yeah,
people had more love in their hearts, I don't think half the things that they say or would do would be so reactive to another thing without having full understanding. And I think
yeah,
one of the biggest things that I've experienced, especially being a minority in the sport who happens to be, a Black woman,
right.
is there's always labels associated to you when people don't understand.
Yeah,
And that's also known as ignorance. And so we can't, you know,
yeah,
it's ignorance, right? And so I
yeah,
think it's really good to have a general understanding, but also just lace it with love. And I think
right,
that at least opens the door for conversation and
right,
understanding. And everyone wants to be understood because people want to
yeah,
be what? Known, accepted, and loved. Like that's
yeah,
our main core things as humans.
yeah. I would love to get to a point where it is just about triathlon. But when you get all those comments where it's like, well, why do you have to make it about this? I'm like, because you are saying, why are you making it about this? I'm
Yeah.
like, when we're just like, if we're posting and you're like, hashtag black triathlete, hashtag gay triathlete,
Because I
like,
use hashtag Black Triathlete all the time.
yeah. I'm like, then it just let us be. You're like, don't need to call us out. Just be supportive of us as
Yeah,
who we are. Don't critique us for who we are. So,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was at an event this weekend, was announcing, I think, Air Force Cycling Classic.
class.
And this was the first year that the race was in DC for the
Mhm.
Capital Cup
Yeah.
and for the challenge ride being able to go through DC. And one of the organizations, Team DC, I believe it was,
Yes. Team
um,
DC. Yep.
there was a capital pride challenge within the challenge ride. Like there's a military challenge ride. And it was about
Mhm.
20 or so people. And at the um, kickoff happy hour, a young someone from Team DC spoke about, the importance of being included. Um,
I'm gonna
Grace,
guess
that's her
that's
name.
Grace. I was
Yes,
gonna guess
Grace,
that
that
was
was her name.
Grace. Yep.
And I was just like, how cool is that? Like, the cycling world was having something dedicated specific because in DC it's a big um it's capital it's a capital pride what is it called? Capital
It's
Pride
it's the Capital Cup going on right now with like it's World Pride right now and
World
DC Pride.
Pride.
Yeah.
Yes, because I know Shakira didn't show up. I
Yeah.
know, like did not show up like she was
Unfortunately.
supposed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's just really cool for people just to be celebrated for who they are. So with that said, um, what I believe that you I guess where I want to go, like there's something in my mind that I'm hearing and I'm saying, and I might be bringing it in from our first attempt of this podcast. But one of the things that you said was finding your space. And you gave a really beautiful analogy about finding your space in the water that I had not heard of before. And I want you to bring that in because I think also at the fabric of what you've been talking about is finding your space. Like find a space where you can try and be happy. Can you and be seen and be appreciated? You know, all the things, just be
Yeah.
authentically you. That's the
Just be
word I'm
you.
trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
All those words to get to that. But talk about that because I think that is so key.
So I think, yeah, if I remember like the analogy I used, is, and I know it's going to be a humble brag again, is when I did Ironman Kona, the World Championships. Like, I'm a swimmer by background. I know, like that was always my like forte, at least. It's kind of changed as I get older. I just don't swim as much as I used to. But I got into like the water, like when I did Kona, it was still the mass start of like 2,000 people going off at once. And the Kona swim is you go out to a buoy, you cross over, and you come back. And I remember everybody was like, "Oh, it's such a beautiful swim. You're in the Pacific Ocean. There's fish all around you." And I remember the whole way out, I was getting punched, kicked, grabbed. People were swimming across me, and I'm like, "I know the buoy's that way. Why is somebody going across me this way? Like this, these are supposed to be the top athletes in the world competing in Ironman World Championship." And the whole way out, I was just like, "This is not fun." And I made the turn, got on the way back, and it was like, you know what? I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to go out, about 20 yards or so away from the buoys and just find my space and just get into my rhythm and swim and enjoy it. And I was like, the whole way back, I was like, oh, there are fish around me. There are beautiful, like clear blue waters below me. Like, I really enjoyed that. And that's kind of like, I think the additional like topics I mentioned, like in any race, like everybody's like, oh, you have to swim along the buoys. You got to swim from buoy to buoy to buoy till you get to that turn buoy. And I'm like, no, you don't. You only have to go around the turn buoy. That's your goal, is to find that turn buoy and get around it. The rest of the time, you don't have to swim near those buoys, and find your space where you can get into your rhythm. You can find it where you're not getting like caught up in the draft packs and the, all the different, the piranha feeding frenzy of arms and legs flailing all around you. It's like find that space where you can just get into a rhythm and enjoy the swim. And you're comfortable. It's like, yeah, you might gain a few seconds from a draft pack of being on somebody's toes, but if you're going to be not happy because you've been hit and kicked and grabbed, like, what's where's that benefit? Like, I don't care. Like, get over here to the side and like find some space and just swim and get to that turn buoy and look for that as opposed to just the next orange buoy or whatever sighting buoy that you have ahead of you.
Find your space, not just in the water, but in life,
Yeah.
period. Bryan, what last thoughts do you want to leave the audience with? We do have we have a range of people. One thing that you guys missed from earlier, he's like, I'm not sure what your audience. What did you say? What did you say earlier
Oh,
today?
I don't remember. I didn't remember how expansive your audience, because I remember we talked about like, I know here in the DC region, like we are very, very blessed with how many different races and different race companies and that we have that put on races
Yes.
around us. So we're able to find a sprint Olympic, a half, a full that is nearby for us. But I was like, I don't know how wide your audience is. I know not every region is as, lucky as we are to have that many different type of races around us. So that
Right.
was where that came from.
And then I had to boldly brag and be like, we are a
Yes.
global audience. We have
Yes,
a
she did.
global podcast.
Which
But
is amazing.
yes, I, yes, it is. And when I see the downloads from, other countries, I'm like, wow, people are listening. I mean, we're still building, but I do believe that we are building something strong. But what final words would you want to give to anyone who might be hearing this, who wants to try, um, maybe scared to try, intimidated to try, maybe feel like they don't have a place they can't call home? What are some words that you would like to leave with them?
Hmm. So that's you didn't ask me this question last time, so I haven't thought of an
And
answer
because
for
we got to
this.
spice it up a little bit.
I know. So I think like what I know my friends are going to tease me. A year ago, like the Team DC, they do kind of an annual gala, and they do like give out awards and scholarships to LGBT identifying high schoolers who might need some college help. They give a scholarship, but they give a bunch of awards, and some of my friends nominated me for, and I ended up winning uh, what the Team BC calls the Trailblazer Award, which was for my efforts for TriOUT to make, build TriOUT into what it is. I didn't, I'll admit, I won't, while I'm the only one from the original crew that's kind of still doing triathlon, they gave this to me. I'm like, I fully credit the other people who helped me form this. But they allowed me to give a speech at this award reception. Um, and I know our we just reshared it on our Instagram post, the part of my speech. And in the during my speech, I was like, I believe that every single one of them, every single person could complete a triathlon. You never know what you're capable of doing until you challenge yourself and test your limits, getting outside your comfort box. And I know we talk about that a lot, finding your space. There is a space for everybody in the multi-sport community, no matter your body type, no matter your talents, no matter what you think you can do. You can try one. And I the part I will say my friends are going to tease me. I did in the end of my great or my speech acceptance speech. I said, as a great philosopher once wrote, where there is desire, there is going to be a flame. Where there is a flame, someone's bound to get burned. But just because it burns doesn't mean you're going to die. You've got to get up and try, try, try. And it's lyrics from a Pink song. So, but kind of adapted. Uh,
I love that because I think that is the embodiment of what it is to try and to step out of your comfort zone. And even if you get burnt a couple of times, you get back up and you keep
try.
trying.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you. Not once, but twice for doing this with me.
You're quite
And
welcome.
again, it happens. Things
Yep.
don't go the way we want them to, but I feel like this turned out to be even better
All
than we
right.
both could have
Excellent.
even expected.
Yeah.
So
Are
thank
we doing
you.
rapid fire?
Huh?
Are we going to do rapid fire?
Can you let me finish?
Sure. Sorry.
I'm trying to give you some flowers and you trying to rush
Oh,
me
okay.
because you excited about rapid fire. But I think a lot of people do like rapid fire. That's a
Yeah.
part of the favorite thing. But anyway, thank
Uh,
you for all that you do in the community and for really being a leader and a trailblazer because you are. You've helped so many people try. Um, I know I'm not a member of DC Tri Club, but I am DC Tri adjacent with all my friends that are in DC Tri Club. Shout out to Elise. Hey, girl. Hey. And, just really, um, I admire the unity that you guys possess. And I just not admire all that you've done for sport. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you for the compliment.
Now we can do rapid fire. And I got to switch up my questions, I
Yeah,
guess,
you got to change it up.
just a little bit, just a little bit. Well, you
Here we go.
mentioned Pink in this last song. What was the name
Mhm.
of the song that comes from?
Oh, try. I was like, why am I blanking on this now of all playing? Try, Try. But yeah,
You
when
know,
you're saying it, you don't know how it's spelled. So you can be triathlon or try
try.
or just try.
Something, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Favorite artist.
I I've always like, I think Imagine Dragons might be one of my top bands. Lady Gaga, Pink, of course, I really enjoy. And I know I'm a little because I'm old and starting to discover like Chapel Run. Like I'm starting to discover her and really enjoying like, Pink Pony Club or Hot to Go. It's like, I know I'm late to the game, but whatever.
Okay. Okay. Favorite distance and why?
Olympic distance to me, I think, well, I like all distances. I will say the Olympic distance is my favorite, and my sounding arrogant, as I mentioned, the sprint distance to me is what's going to take me an hour. I just don't want to get all my stuff together for like an hour's worth of work. I know that's not everybody's case, that they don't just take an hour for a sprint. But an Ironman really takes it out of you. A half Ironman just kind of takes up a long part of a day. But it's the Olympic distance is really nice. You can like get up there. You can. It's something you can do without. While you do need nutrition, it's not like the fourth sport of triathlon. Like you can do an Olympic distance with kind of minimal figuring out of triathlon. Like, oh yeah, I just need to do a goo here and there. Like, whereas like a half Ironman, you got to like, well, I got to do this much bottle on the bike and this, and this, and this, and I got to eat at this point, and then like do my schedule and all this stuff. Whereas an Olympic, you can kind of wing it and still do it. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like takes a lot of it's just an easier planning thing. Um,
Interesting. What that made me think of when you don't want to, do a sprint because it's for an hour, you know, that's a great thing. And I see this Instagram post that's going around where like the shoes are sitting in front of the TV watching Kipchoge run. And it's like,
yeah.
I'm telling my shoes to be fast. That's me because it takes me a little longer than an hour to do a sprint. So
That's
that would be
totally
me.
fine.
So there's a spectrum. There's a
There is a
spectrum.
spectrum, and it's all good.
Yeah. Um, swim, bike, run, in which order of preference?
So when I first started, I would have said swim, bike, and run in that order. Now I think it's run, swim, and bike.
Interesting
I
combo.
really enjoy the run. Now I turned out to be a really good runner despite like all the issues I thought I was going to have when I first started doing this sport. Turns out I haven't had it, and I really enjoy the run. And I also kind of, I guess it's going to sound arrogant as well. It's like I'm a decent biker. I mean, I got to be decent enough to be on the podium and all that. But
That humbleness, I tell you, it's
yeah,
coming
exactly.
through.
Um, I still get like blown by like this Uber cyclists that just fly by me. But then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go catch you on the run. And I think still one of my favorite stories or like times was like when I did Eagle Man. I just got blown by these two guys on their bike, and they just like I was standing still when they went by me, it seemed like. But then I got onto the run, and like midway through the run, I saw both of them again walking, and I passed them, and they're like, nice run, man. And I'm like, thanks. And I'm like, I did one as like, great bike. It really did you well. Like I wish I didn't want to say that, but like I'm thinking it in my head, and I'm like, so it's kind of like that's why the run is kind of fun too, because like you get to track down all those people who just blew by you on something else, like on in the bike or the swim. So
Well, not only do you humbly brag, quote unquote, but you humbly throw shade. I see
yeah,
you.
that too.
I see you. I'm peeping it and I love it.
Yeah,
Um, T1 or T2, which is more challenging for you?
T1. I suck at getting my wetsuit off. I
Okay.
really suck at that.
Homemade race day nutrition or store-bought options?
I buy everything in like the goos, the honey stingers, I don't make my own. I don't do homemade. Like I make my own breakfast. My pre-race breakfast is just a English muffin with peanut butter and Nutella. But the rest is all through, sport nutrition companies for the races.
Who or what inspires you?
Uh, I think my mom is going to be my answer. I know it sounds cliche, but um, we I know that I mentioned that like it's been a few trying personal weeks for me or months or I guess the last 6 weeks or so, that I lost my dad about a week and a half ago. But my mom and my dad met, we have been married for 57 years. They knew each other for 6 months before they got married. They met on the French Riviera. And my mom was from Holland. She was vacationing in the French Riviera. My dad was from America. They met, and then 6 months later, my dad proposed to her, and they got married in Holland, back at my mom's place. She loaded up everything she owned into a little crate, and this is the time she put it on a boat for the slow boat, from America or Holland to America, and like I can't imagine anybody in this day and age like packing up everything like that and like moving across to an unknown area. Had never been in the United States before. And she's built an incredible life, and I would say two pretty good children. So at least I'll say my sister's better than I am. But uh, I think she inspires me every day to like what she's gone through and everything, every challenge that she undertook through her life. So
Well, that's a beautiful love story that many can't even say, but I'm glad that your mom got to live that. And I'm
yeah.
very sorry for the loss of your father. And I would have told me no to this podcast interview. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule, not once, but
You're
twice.
quite welcome.
So thank you. Um,
Yep, back to rapid
favorite,
fire.
you said what now?
Back to rapid fire.
I know, right? Back to rapid fire because I get all in the moments and
Yeah.
the thing. Favorite, uh, uh, I'm gonna get it together. Favorite race destination.
So I know I bug Greg about this every darn time I see him. Savage Man was one of my favorite races. I loved the area. I love Deep Creek Lake. I think it's a beautiful area.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the challenge of Savage Man. I loved um, Kyle Yost's, like he wanted to design a course that was the most challenging course because he wanted to take ego and time out of the equation. And I think that just made it for a lot of fun event of just you're not going for your best half Ironman time. You're going for can you climb a 30% grade wall and not fall over backwards, like type thing. So that was kind of been always one of my favorite locations. But Ironman Switzerland was gorgeous. I did that one last year. That was an amazing venue. Ironman Austria was amazing. Nice, 70.3 was an incredible location. Uh, Even it's long defunct Challenge St. Andrews, which is over in New Brunswick, Canada, was a really
It was
fun and
supposed to be
great.
just
Oh,
one.
sorry,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-mm.
bad.
It's okay. It's okay. But I appreciate that because Savage Man was my first race that I announced. And seeing people go up that 30% grade was like, oh, wow. And if they could make it up the wall and complete the race, they got their name in a brick on that wall. And I think they
Yeah.
might have torn up the brick. I don't know if the bricks are still there.
Oh no.
I don't know if they
Oh,
are. I'm saying I don't know.
I think they are.
They are
They
okay.
should be.
So if you go to the
That's the
Deep
best
Creek
part of the
area,
road. The rest of the they need to tear up the other part besides the brick. That's the bad
right,
part of the road.
right. But there are bricks of people who've made it up there and finished the entire race because it was deemed as one of the hardest triathlons in the United States. And we don't let people leave without this answering this question. Do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Uh, Oddly enough, for someone who's raced for 17 years now, last year was the first time I've peed on the bike. At Ironman Switzerland, I peed on the bike for the first time.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I've done 9 Ironman. This was my ninth, and this is the only time I've peed and never peed for a half for Ollie or sprint.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, there's a first time for everything, right?
There is.
There is. There is.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pee on the Bike Club, I guess.
Just make sure if you do pee on the bike, wash your bike afterward. Make sure to rinse it down really well.
Oh, absolutely. Rinse it down after every. Technically, you should wash your bike after every ride,
That's true too.
but
I know we all don't do
definitely
that.
after you have done things on it too. All right. Okay. Moving forward. Thank you so much, Bryan. We have this saying
You
on
are
Try
welcome.
Beginners Luck that whenever you try beginners luck, you always win. I believe that to be so true. Thank you guys for riding with us. Be sure to like, share this. For those of you who want to watch on YouTube, we're on YouTube, as well as any of your favorite platforms from Apple, Spotify, iTunes, even Audible. For those of you who are in Audible, we're there. We're everywhere. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines. And for right now, we are out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try beginner's luck, you always win.